My fellow Americans, I'm pleased to tell you today that I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes.
It is essential that our team learns to work with our new recruit, not against him.
I'm a geek, walking down the street.
Check the computer.
The mainframe computer. I access the mainframe.
At the end of this day, one shall stand, one shall fall. Time to find out.
Welcome to Basically a Geek Show. Here are your hosts, Mike and Jack.
And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 3 of Basically a Geek Show, your one-stop shop for the pop culture lowdown. I'm going to keep saying that until it sticks. My name's Mike, and with me is Jack.
What is up, sexy geeks and geekettes?
Alright, so I know I finished up last show promising to not go so heavy on the Transformers news this time around, but then Toy Fair happened.
And do note that he promised that. I didn't. So he's the one wiping his ass with this promise, not me.
Well,
I keep it real.
Well, you know, I can't help it. It's, but yeah, Toy Fair happened. A lot of interesting reveals as far as Transformers goes, obviously in toy form, but because they were movie toys, not only is this interesting from a toy perspective if you are someone who collects Transformers figures, but even if you're not into the collection side of Transformers and you just want to know about character models, then this was a great chance to see the designs that are going to be on the screen in Transformers 4 Age of Extinction. So, as you could tell, Jack here is not particularly enamored, at least with the movie offerings, and I guess I'll start with what is perhaps the most egregious of the movie outings as far as toys go. And that is the Age of Extinction Robots in Disguise line. Now, for the sake of clarity, I'm just going to state this up front. Hasbro is doing something with Transformers. They've essentially split Transformers into 2 lines. You're going to have Robots in Disguise, and you're going to have Generations.
The left cheek and the right cheek.
Generations will focus on more complex figures aimed at collectors, more high-end kind of figures. Robots in Disguise will feature the movie toys that are very simple for kids. So, you know, that's something to keep in mind when trying to look at these. And we'll get more into that as we go into detail. But, yeah, just keep that in mind, listeners. We're going to start off with the Robots in Disguise, aka the kid-centric stuff, and then we're going to move into the more complex stuff with Generations. So, let's hit the ground running then. Transformers 4, Age of Extinction, Robots in Disguise images. Jack, your thoughts. Brothers.
Ass. Okay, seriously. I know that Hasbro has said time and time again that they want to, you know, kind of get away from, you know, the Rubik's Cube of some of the former movie offerings in terms of toys. And yeah, no, they were a pain in the ass sideways to transform. I'll be the first to admit that. Not even just for a kid, but for an adult. They were quite difficult, a lot of them. And, you know, like, oh, hey, we're going to go back more old school inspired in terms of our engineering on these toys. It's going to be more simple, you know, a few steps as opposed to 25,000, and it's going to, you know, be a little bit simpler for a kid to understand. So, and Hasbro, in their infinite wisdom, somehow simpler transformed into hit a button and the toy transforms.
That's my real disappointment here. This idea was first test run in the current Transformers Prime Beast Hunters line. And I touched a bit upon this last week. What they did was, as far as toys go, there are multiple classes. There's the deluxe class, which is basic action figure stuff. Then you have the Voyager class, slightly larger, and then the Leader class for the really big figures.
Biggie sized.
But underneath deluxe, you have stuff called Legends and Cyberverse. And those are smaller toys, lower price points, simpler transformations. To test run this simpler stuff for kids line, for the tail end of the Beast Hunters line, they're taking those Cyberverse toys, their small Cyberverse toys, and they're blowing them up. They're scaling them up to deluxe size. And they're saying, here's a deluxe size toy, but it's really simple to transform. And here's the thing. When I saw that, I was actually rather excited, because a lot of the Cyberverse toys in Beast Hunters are rather good. They look great. They're a bit limited, of course, because they're smaller, so there's not much you can do with them. But they have great sculpts. They have very dynamic posing options. But when you scale them up to deluxe size, it actually looked pretty neat. And it wasn't simple to the point of mind-numbingly simple. They're about 4 or 5 steps each. And that's fine. So, at BotCon, Hasbro said, we're not just going to be scaling up Cyberverses to test this idea of splitting the lines up. We're going to use the Cyberverse blowing up plan as sort of a test run, and then when we hit Transformers 4, we're going to start making simpler toys from scratch at deluxe size. So I was actually excited to see what these new, simpler designs would look like, because I am such a big fan of the Cyberverse stuff from Beast Hunters. They dropped the ball, because a lot of these are one-step transformations. They're spring-loaded. You hit a button, and they go into robot mode. And some look better than others, some look worse than others, but even the best ones really aren't hitting it out of the park, and the worst ones are absolutely dreadful.
Yeah, the worst ones here, and I'm looking specifically what I'm calling the one-pump chump drift, it's not even worth putting in a Happy Meal. If I got that in a Happy Meal, the highlight of that meal would be the chicken nuggets, not the toy. A lot of these are pretty much equally bad.
I wouldn't say equally bad. They're all disappointing, but that drift is terrible on a whole other level.
It is. God, there's just so much crap here. And the thing that pisses me off is I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, well, it's for kids, so it's supposed to be simple. Shut the fuck up.
And I mean,
okay,
that's
stop insulting children. When I was, 5, 6 years old, we had the original G1 figures, and they were simple transformations that you could grasp. Don't insult a child's intelligence by making everything, a one-pump chump. You hit a button and it transforms. That's stupid. Nobody wants that. Even if you're getting down to, below 5 and 6, 4 even. They could handle most of the G1 transformations. I mean, small parts notwithstanding, of course. So really what you're having here is toys that are really only fit maybe for preschoolers, maybe. That's pretty much what you're ending up with here, and it's just fucking everything up. The paints, the color schemes are horrible. Looks like someone at Hasbro is having a love affair with pastels at the moment. They all look just really... They look like ass. They just look like ass.
They look cheap. Drift in particular, and, these attributes, if you can call them attributes, are found on most of these, but Drift just looks hollow. His legs and side torsos are fused, and it's just hollow plastic. It looks terrible. And touching on what Jack said, and that's going back to what I said originally, it's like, look, if you want to make simpler toys that are maybe 4 or 5 step transformations, you could probably get some pretty decent simple figures out of that. But these aren't 4 or 5 step transformations. These are 1 step spring-loaded monstrosities.
And the really sad thing here is, I know, just as well as you know as well, Mike, that there are collectors that are going to buy these. In fact, we've seen and heard people say, oh, well, these look great. I can't wait to hand Hasbro my money because I'm retarded. They're going to sell. It's a sad thing. And when that happens, it's only going to encourage Hasbro to turn out more shit like this. This is garbage.
Yeah, these are meant for kids, and yeah, that's not an excuse for the poor quality I see on display here. But at the same time, collectors, if you're an adult collector or you're in your late teens as a collector, don't waste your money on this. If you really want movie toys that are not just mind-numbingly awful, that's what the Generations line is for. So I guess that's a good way to jump into our discussion on the Generations movie toys, which are the same characters but done in a much more complex style.
Yeah, and a lot of those, again, I don't care for the coloring on a lot of them. Again, you see a lot of the pastels, crap that. The detail on the designs, of course, are a lot better. Drift
the engineering looks better.
Yeah. Drift doesn't look like some kind of weird, idiotic, genetically spliced version of Ultra Magnus. I'm still not blown away by anything really in the Generations that I might consider getting, in terms of the movie offerings, that is. Most notably, Grimlock looked okay, though I think I personally, would go for the leader class Grimlock. That one actually looked pretty nice.
Well, interestingly enough, all of the leader class toys are being listed under the Generations line. There is not a specific leader class subsection for the Robots in Disguise / Kitty line.
Yeah. And ironically for me, because I loathe Bumblebee and everything he stands for, the one that I actually really would like to pick up is the 67 Aero mold of Bumblebee with kind of the inverted color scheme of black and yellow as opposed to vice versa.
I'm just going to leave him in car mode the entire time.
I am.
Yeah.
I'll give it a chance. I'll transform it once, because you got to do it at least once to pop the cherry. But I'll transform it, see what the bot mode looks like, and then probably put it right back into classic car mode. Just me with my desire to see more classic car Transformers. I got to take what they're giving me. Yeah, literally in this case, and I'll get the Bumblebee. At least it looks cool. I think it'll be kind of neat to have a classic car Transformer, and that's the one that I'm actually kind of looking forward to, ironically.
Look what you've done, Hasbro. You've made this man look forward to a Bumblebee figure.
Galvatron. My God. Galvatron. What the actual fuck is going on with Galvatron?
Why is Galvatron a truck? Okay, I understand that Galvatron is probably going to be a reborn Megatron because that's his thing. So I understand that, and I understand that Megatron was a truck in Age of Dark of the Moon. I understand that. But if he's being reformatted into Galvatron, then why would he still be a truck? Galvatron is not a truck. Galvatron is a space cannon. He is a space cruiser. He's a jet. He is something sleek and futuristic looking. He's not a truck.
What, a Volvo truck isn't sleek and futuristic enough for you? I think it's a Volvo. I don't know. It might be. I don't know. I'm sure someone can correct us on that. But yeah, I get what you're saying. The only thing that I would that, Mike, would be that, Optimus Prime's alt mode has always been a truck, pretty much. Mm-hmm. Megatron, Galvatron, they've always taken a lot more liberty with that, and that kind of started it out of necessity with G1, not wanting kids to run around with a perfectly realistic looking B-38 pistol.
Oh, come on now. What could go wrong?
Exactly. But, that's not so much what bothers me. I don't mind. In fact, I think the alt mode looks pretty cool, to tell you the truth. I do like the alt mode. It's the bot mode that's got me scratching my head. And I know that Michael Bay has no issue whatsoever with taking an established character design and being like, yeah, that so totally doesn't work for me. We're going to go ahead and not do that. I get it. But this is just, I don't like it. The head sculpt in particular and I know this is not so much a criticism of the toy itself as it is the design of the character. I get that. But it just does, I look at that and nothing about it invokes a mental image of Galvatron to me. No. Where at least with Megatron, you know.
He had the helmet. Megatron had the helmet.
You could look at it and you could say, okay, I can see Megatron there. Mm-hmm. This just, it looks generic.
You know what he looks like? He kind of looks like a generic Decepticon. Like if they just wanted to make a generic silvery Decepticon as a background character, that's what Galvatron looks like.
I'll tell you what it fucking looks like. Ass!
And again, you know, as far as the toys go, if you're not a fan of the CGI character models, then it's not gonna matter what toy you look at, either the Kitty stuff or the Generation stuff. If you just don't like the character model, then nothing's gonna change your mind on that. I will say this, I like a lot of the Generations Dinobots. The Spinosaurus that we see here has a really cool robot mode. I'm really digging the Velociraptor's, alternate mode, his Raptor mode, Swoop. I don't know why his Pteranodon mode has 2 heads, but he does. And I'm not the biggest, fan of Triceratops in the world, but, that Triceratops, I believe it's gonna be Slug?
Slug, Slug, I believe, yes.
Yeah, but his robot mode is just solid looking, so, the Dinobots, the Generations Dinobots, I'm actually looking forward to. I'll probably get one, see how I like it, and, go from there.
I don't know. I mean, the Dinobots, and I know again this goes back to a reflection from the movie on which the figures are based, but the whole multicolored faceted aspect of the Dinobots, especially with such garish and bright colors, which I'm guessing are supposed to be kid appeal because robot dinosaurs aren't enough to attract children. We've got to, they have to look like a Crayola box threw up on them to get people interested, and that's exactly what they've done with these color schemes. This fucking Triceratops is purple with orange shit around the frill. Not a fan. The Velociraptor just looks like it was ass raped by Easter.
The Velociraptor is pastel turquoise and pastel lime green. And I don't understand why you take a dinosaur that is essentially a robotic murder lizard and paint it in these soft colors. I don't understand that, but.
Without getting into a broader discussion on paleontology, because God, this show can only last 2 hours at the most. We don't have the rest of the night. I know that there's a lot of outlandish fringe theories or ideas about what actual dinosaur coloring could have been, and yes, feathers are now a thing, it would seem. I think they get bored after a while and just decide to pull random shit out of their asses. And they're trying to convey some of that with this toy, I guess, is kind of what they're doing, and that may be the idea behind some of the coloring of these Dinobot figures on the whole. Now, I'm actually looking at the Velociraptor figure. The detail looks pretty good, especially around the head and the teeth. Looks really nice. The feathering, I don't know. It looks kind of weird. It looks like they tried too hard to put more on there at the last minute, especially up there at the base of the neck and the shoulder plates.
Yeah.
It looks like that was just kind of thrown on as an afterthought, and that tuft that's coming up over the hip joint looks kind of out of place too. If they just left it with like the elbow and the thigh, that would have been enough. But I think they went a little bit overboard on it.
Coming into the leader class, Generations TF4 stuff. We've got leader class Grimlock and leader class Optimus Prime. I've got a handy link for you if you need one. I'm sending it now. There you go. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on this because this is the Optimus Prime that we saw as a preview. Very, very shiny, liberal use of chrome. And then we're getting looks at Grimlock in his leader mode. Looks very big. I think this is supposed to be the one that's going to be huge. This Grimlock is just going to be ginormous.
Yeah, the Grimlock is going to be And now I don't have, you've got the Metroplex for the recent Titan Mass. It looks like to me it could be comparable in size to that.
I don't think it's going to be as big as that, but it will be close.
But I'm looking at both of these leader class figures, the Grimlock and the Prime, and I actually do rather like them. There's nothing really. Aesthetically, I don't dig all that chrome on Prime. It's a bit more subdued here than it is on the first edition that we've seen pictures floating around of recently. So I like this. I really liked what they did with the eyes, that kind of almost menacing and kind of G1 looking slant down to them, and the faceplate looks has a bit more of a G1 look to it. I like it. I do like it. If the coloring of I do like it. And Grimlock, I don't think this is the actual giant Grimlock. Because it looks a little bit different to me. The stance of this is more bipedal as opposed to the larger one, which is almost like a vertical that was balanced on two really massive hind legs. And this looks like it's probably different. The robot mode for Grimlock is interesting. I still don't dig that samurai helmet. I think that's a little bit silly for Grimlock, but the rest I'm digging. I especially love how the sides of the Tyrannosaurus's head kind of form, the shoulder plates on that. There's a lot of detail in these figures, and I would consider getting either of them.
You know what Grimlock's shoulder armor looks like with the two halves of the dinosaur head? It looks like Warcraft pauldrons.
Yeah, it does. That was the first thing that kind of popped into my mind too. It actually looks like a really weird tier set of World of Warcraft armor, except it's not crazy enough and someone might actually want to wear it, so do it.
I really am digging Optimus's robot mode. It's got vague elements it's got vague elements of a knight look to it, kind of a knight paladin kind of look, especially around the waist and the legs. And then I kind of can see that with some shoulder armor up top, but I'm digging Prime's look. Grimlock, I'm actually not all that entirely sold on it. Maybe it's the colors, but he still looks menacing enough, I suppose. But I guess that wraps up the movie toys discussion. If anyone, even if you're not interested in collecting the toys, I would recommend that you check them out. If for no other reason, then you get an idea of what the CGI models are going to look like for these robotic characters for Age of Extinction. So at the very least, you'll get a bit of a preview of what to expect from the film visually. But moving along in the Toy Fair news, we've got Generations leader Jetfire. We talked a lot about him last week, so nothing really new to report here, except that it was confirmed, that leak was confirmed to be accurate. He still looks awesome, and I still can't wait to buy him.
Yeah, and we've got, at least I can see three, maybe, I'm looking at three figures right now anyways that are Generations Deluxe, Nightbeat, Windblade, and G-Axis. Mm-hmm. I like them all actually. I still think with regards to Windblade, and this picture here is not really all that representative of what I've seen in the actual Toy Fair pictures. This is a bit better, to be honest with you. But the toy itself looked kind of anemic, a little bit flimsy to me, but I guess it's supposed to be evocative of a female form. It just didn't really pull it off very well. It just looked kind of incomplete to me.
Windblade's definitely interesting. Windblade is the fan-built bot. Hasbro ran a promotion where they said, you guys are going to design a Transformer, and they released a poll on the website, on Hasbro's website, and you could vote for Autobot, Decepticon, you could vote what the alternate mode was, you could vote on the gender, you could vote on the weaponry, you can vote on the personality and the bio, and then, after that round of voting was done, they had a bit more specific questions, and then finally they narrowed that down, and then they said, we've got all the results, here's what you voted for, and it is a female Autobot who transforms into a jet. Her name is Windblade, and she's going to be interesting to see how she turns out. Just because, yeah, this is the fan-built bot. This is what the fans, when left to their own devices, would like to see. A female jet with a sword.
And, well, and, you know, hey, that's what I voted for too, actually. That was what I voted for. It's behooved Hasbro very, very much that they did not leave it in a more open format, that they gave the fans certain choices. Okay, choose one of these things, because otherwise we would probably have
Hitlertron?
Yeah. Hitlertron, or maybe Cockamus Prime.
Yeah. When dealing with internet voting, you need to set boundaries.
I wouldn't have minded Hitlertron. It would have given me something to give you as a gift for holiday season, because I'm sure you would have loved that.
You know it.
Totally, fucking totally. But yeah, this is what they ended up with, and I like the design. And now this is where it does bear repeating once more that these are not movie figures that we're discussing at this point. With Windblade in particular, her story is going to be told through an IDW comic.
Yeah, she's going to be part of the IDW Generation 1 continuity. And all of these are, Nightbeat's actually even a player in the IDW story, and Nightbeat looks interesting. He's a retool of the Generations IDW, Bumblebee toy. But G-Axis is the one that I'm interested in, because someone who I think is an underrated character in the IDW Transformers comics is Nova Prime. He is a Prime that predates Optimus, and I really dig his character design. And I've been waiting for a figure of him to be released by Hasbro, to no avail. But in the story, G-Axis is his, lieutenant, his right-hand man, as it were. So, the fact that we're getting a G-Axis toy, even if it is just a remold of that, Armada Starscream toy, the fact that we're getting him, you know, it leaves me open to the idea that we will get a Nova Prime at some point.
Lieutenant, really?
That is the proper pronunciation,
no.
Yes.
And how is that spelled identical to the American version, correct?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Need I point out the flaw here in the logic?
You know, we wanted hockey today, so yeah.
You wanted hockey, and I actually do thank you for it, because this idiot's vision of how to select a team, not that I give a flying rat's ass about sports, I really don't, but the idea that someone could aspire to be successful by basing any kind of professional selection on their dreams, this notion must be stopped no matter the cost. And just in a victory of plain fucking common sense, I'm glad you guys did, but that has nothing to do with your ass backwards spelling, pronunciation, whatever, of lieutenant, sir.
You know, last night on basically a sports show, I had to defend the proper pronunciation of the last letter of the alphabet, and now I have to go through this.
Yes, you do.
So,
yes, you do.
Okay. Okay. It's called the Queen's English, sir. Queen's English.
Right. She probably doesn't even remember half of it anymore.
Well, you know.
I'm just saying. Anyways, so, yeah, G-Axis is interesting simply because, you know, it could mean that we might get a Nova Prime figure later. Though to the point of the G-Axis figure itself, I'm really not impressed. It's your standard jet dealio. Looks like they kind of phoned it in to me personally. I do like the little pew-pew launchers on his shoulders. Those look kind of fun. The guns look kind of nice. Beyond that, nothing really to write home about. And the orange that they're using, I find, is a bit garish.
Well, G-Axis is orange.
Yeah, they could have played with that color a little bit. Oh, I forgot. They got Captain Pastel doing everything now, evidently.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but all these toys, and it's not just movie stuff, even in some of the non-movie generation stuff, the colors just look washed out. Like on this, I don't know what to call it. I think it's a Scout class, years. And I'll throw the link in comment.
Yeah, that's one of them didn't bother with, because I didn't think we'd be discussing that.
But I just want to point out, just in terms of pasteliness,
yeah.
If you click on Gears, you know, Gears is blue and red, right? Well, the blue looks incredibly soft here.
Yeah, it does.
So they're really going with some saturated colors.
And likewise for Acid Storm, who is basically a green Starscream, is how you can pretty much imagine him. And his green is very, very muted, kind of a pastel neon green color. Mm-hmm. And I'm not digging it at all.
Yeah, so they're going through a phase color-wise at Hasbro, I guess. And then just to wrap up Toy Fair news, the latest round of non-movie generation Voyagers has been announced. We've got Skybite and Roadbuster. Roadbuster is a Generation 1 character who hasn't had an official toy since G1. And Skybite, of course, is the Predacon who transforms into a shark from the anime Robots in Disguise that aired between Beast Machines and Armada. In a rather maligned show that was Robots in Disguise, Skybite stood out as sort of a fan favorite, so I guess that's why they went back to revisit him.
Yeah, I watched Robots in Disguise back in the day. I've given it one watch through. I don't remember all that much about it, to tell you the truth. The toy looks cool enough. I mean, it's a fucking robot shark and it does stuff. Pretty much your nightmares made manifest. Roadbuster is actually pretty cool. I know some people have kind of raised an eyebrow at the placement of the wheels in such obvious positions in the robot mode they're on, the outer part of either forearm. And, I think that's I think it's supposed to be subtly just saying, this is more of a combat performance unit, not really something that's made for Flash and whatnot. And I actually do like the color schemes on this one. You've got your military 1970s shit brown, you've got your baby vomit green, and kind of a dirty orangish, but it's not very pastel or anything like some of the others. I actually do like this, and it is worth noting, just for some things that we'll discuss in the future, that this was, like a lot of the other recent offerings from Hasbro, this was recently made as a third-party figure.
So, yeah, we probably won't discuss it this show, but in all likelihood, stay tuned next week when we discuss the relationship between Hasbro and third party. We'll have a lot to say on that. And, it'll allow us to talk about Transformers for a fourth show in a row, even if no news comes out, so yay us. But I guess finishing up our Transformers discussion, the first in-game releases, images have been released of Transformers Universe, the MMO. Well, it was MMO. I'm not entirely sure what it is now.
It's a MOBA, multi-online battle arena. It's
League of Legends.
League of Legends, and for that reason, I have next to zero interest in this game. If not only that, is the fact that it's also a browser-based game. At least that's what it was initially. I'm thinking that it still is. And I just don't see how that's going to have really any merit at all. I think this game's going to be a joke.
Yeah. Yeah, when they first announced an MMO RPG based on Transformers, as a World of Warcraft player, I was like, sweet. And then they announced, well, it's going to be a browser-based MMO. And I went, oh, well, okay. I'll still give it a shot, I guess. And then they made it a MOBA, and I just went, you know what, I'm out. I don't care anymore. I mean, it just seems so blatant. Like, this thing production was started during the height of World of Warcraft, and then it becomes a MOBA at the height of MOBA games, of League of Legends. So it kind of just seems like they're chasing the dollar. MMOs were the big money makers, so they said, well, we'll make it an MMO. And then, WoW subscription goes down a bit, Guild Wars 2 fails to light the world on fire, so then they're like, oh, well, MMOs really aren't the guaranteed money maker we thought they were. But MOBAs are doing well, let's make it a MOBA. And who the hell knows, if Facebook games take off, then, Transformers Universe could be a Facebook game.
Well, for all practical points and purposes, I mean, Facebook games are pretty successful. But, it does bear mentioning that this is a free-to-play game. So you saying, they're chasing the dollar, yeah, that's pretty much what's going on. Now, I actually am looking at some of the screenshots here that are supposed to be in-game, and taking my own anti-MOBA bias aside, it does look like it could be interesting. I do like the graphics. I don't know, little is known at this point, as to whether the bots are customizable, whether you're going to play your own characters, or whether it's going to be like League of Legends where you have heroes that you choose from. I'm thinking it's going to be a more customizable approach is what they're doing with it possibly. And it's, it looks like it could be interesting. It's from a different, camera perspective than League. It's not top down. It's, more like a third person shooter in its gameplay looks like. So it could be interesting. I'm going to try not to let the word MOBA scare me off. It is a free to play game. So, when it does get into beta, if I'm able to get into the beta, I'll play it and I'll give my first impressions here on the show.
Okay, so, but speaking of beta, World of Warcraft, Warlords of Draenor, we're getting increasingly close to the launch of that as far as beta goes. Some in-game images from Draenor have actually been released, I believe officially through a press pass by Blizzard. And we've got some videos detailing both the Horde and Alliance starting zones in Draenor. So, Jack, any thoughts on that?
They both look pretty epic.
I disagree about the letter.
But they both look epic. One looks better than the other. And we'll get to that here in a little bit. The Horde starting area, I believe, has the player's character to help the, I want to say the Frostwolf clan, if there's any
Frostwolf clan, yes.
Yeah, trying to basically defend the Frostwolf clan from the Iron Horde, who Garrosh is trying to forcibly annex under his banner to basically make them his meat shields. And, there's a lot of interesting things that are going on there. A lot of pretty cool looking fights against giant boars, and there's one scene where there's a tornado vortex type thing that sucks up a bunch of ogres or some shit, and it looks really good. And what's really notable here, besides what's actually happening quest-wise, is that, the dancing animations have been overhauled with more frames, so that the movement is more fluid and smooth. New character models just look bloody brilliant. I love them. They're great. And the graphics on the whole, they have squeezed this fucking 10-year-old game engine. They have squeezed this goddamn thing until it is begging for mercy.
I am really impressed with what they've been able to get out of it.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can still look at it and you can still see some of the Age of WoW in there. But you know what? It's
so beautiful you don't care.
Yeah, and it's not ass compared to, some of the newer games. It holds its own with the newer games that are out there. So, definitely my hat's off to Blizzard on that. The Alliance starting chain, the reason why I did call it epic is because you definitely, for the most part, seem to get a vibe from it that, yes, this is a place under attack, there is a war going on, and I'm believing that the player is defending Shattrath, against an Iron Horde attack.
It's not Shattrath, it's the name's escaping me, but it's what will become the Black Temple.
Yes. Okay, you're right, yeah. So what will become the Black Temple, the name escapes me too, but, Valen, who is the leader of a race called the Draenor, Jewish space ghosts. Yes.
Jewish space ghosts, yes.
And, Valen is sending the character on various quests, and, you see flaming boulders shooting from the sky and arrows and all this. Unfortunately, that's where the epic feel of it kind of ends, though, aside from the surroundings that you really don't interact with, the background of the bombardment and everything. The gameplay for the Alliance starting quest, to me at least, just looked kind of standard. It looked like your regular go kill X number of fucking Murlocs and come back when you're done kind of shit. And I know after, right before the show, Mike, you and I, we we both watched both of these videos, and I held my tongue because I didn't want my opinion to really influence what you were going to think about it. And then afterwards, I brought it up. The Alliance quest just really didn't seem as epic feeling or cool as the Horde.
No, and this is a bit of a problem. Just because of the way that the Horde Alliance, perceived balance is regarding Blizzard, there is a perception among a large percentage of Alliance players that Blizzard favors the Horde. Having an entire expansion devoted to exploring Horde lore obviously fueled those fires, and this is not going to make it better if... Now, obviously, we're only seeing around 7-minute videos of an entire starting zone, so for all we know, there could be stuff that we're not seeing in the Alliance side of things that really elevate it. But just from what I'm seeing, it kind of seems phoned in, that the Alliance experience seems phoned in compared to the Horde experience. And, no, I'm not gonna play Horde just because just for the sake of playing that content. I'm very happy playing Alliance. I prefer Alliance lore, I prefer Alliance characters, and I prefer Alliance races. So that's who I'm going to play as. I would just like it if Blizzard would at some point say, yes, we do have a large Alliance player base. Over half of our subscribers play Alliance. Over half. So we're gonna give you cool stuff too. But I guess not. The only consolation I got from these two videos is the fact that Thrall seems confined to the Horde side of the story, so we don't have to look at his stupid face.
If you think that is going to last more than a couple of zones, then please pass whatever the fuck you're drinking. Because I would love... It's gotta be moonshine. It's gotta be some real knock you on your ass shit. Now, they're not going to not let the Alliance player have a reprieve from Thrall because fuck you, that's why. Chris Metzen needs to be able to get an erection no matter which faction he's playing that day, and the only way that he can get it up is to see Thrall. And, fine, whatever, we'll take this goddamn ride because we're left with little choice besides not play, and we have a problem. But, and again, what you said is true. This is pre-beta footage. There could be a lot of things in here that we aren't. It could be that, the first 5 minutes of the Horde and the first 5 minutes of the Alliance quest are different, and then they balance each other out later. I mean, you don't know. There could be a lot of things here that we're not taking into account. And, if you want to accuse Mike and I of being raving Alliance fanboys, well, we are. But we're not, we're not without common sense. We can actually kind of, to an extent, detach ourselves from that and say, well, it is balanced. You just have to look at it different. And that's been a lot of things, the Alliance players bitching and QQ and, oh, another Horde-centric expansion. Oh my God, fucking Blizzard and their fucking Horde bias. And we're like, hey, we get to go fucking slaughter shit tons of orc heroes. Awesome.
Yeah, it's a time travel plot as much as Blizzard wants to say it's not, but it is time travel, at least in some way. So yeah, we are going back to the Orcish homeland to slaughter all of their greatest cultural heroes.
Yeah,
so,
is there Alliance fights with Mike and I? Yes, there is. But we are able to put it aside and even, refute some of the others and be a moderating voice of influence when possible. That being said, though, based on what we've seen from these opening few minutes of gameplay from this press event, it does definitely seem that the Alliance quest chain is lacking at this point. Beyond that, though, I don't want that to detract from overall just what is shaping up to be a fucking magnificent-looking expansion. I get a little bit hard just thinking about it.
Yeah, it's very beautiful visually. I can't wait to get in there.
That's what
and
she
one
said.
One of the ways that you can get in there is is through beta. And I just wanted to talk a bit, just generally speaking, about beta. What beta is, I know we talked about it during our first episode, but just a quick refresher. Beta is when they have a version of the game, and they say, here it is, player base, you play it, and report all the bugs you see so that we can refine it for launch.
Kind of. Well,
Beta's interesting because in order to fully explore zones, you need to be at the highest level. So when they flag your account to test beta, you go in and you create a top-level character, you get top-level gear.
It's like Christmas.
Yeah, it is, essentially. But there's and it's every expansion, without fail, at the end of the beta testing cycle, you have people going, Blizzard should let us keep all our level, our top-level characters with top-level armor.
Yeah. What do you mean I can't keep my beta character when the game goes like, what unfair advantage? I leveled him fair and square. Mom, more Hot Pockets.
Yeah. And, I don't know, it kind of just seems like, because they choose you randomly. If you have a Battle.net account, which is your official Blizzard account, they flag you randomly if you are subscribed to WoW.
Which sounds really menacing when you put it that way. They flag you randomly. Dear God, man!
But, people, a lot of people who are flagged and who play the beta, they don't play the beta the way they're supposed to play the beta. You're supposed to, give feedback and report glitches. People just play because I want to play the game early. Oh, well, the whole point is you playing it early is so that you can report problems so that when the rest of us poor schmucks get to play it, it's not glitchy as hell.
And how well does that work, Mike?
Not very good at all.
Okay, so a bit of a backstory as to what I'm referring to. The night that Mists of Pandaria, the current WoW expansion, the night that it launched, me and Mike here, we're sitting there we got our beer, we got our pizza, and we're ready to fucking rock. We're on our Ventrilo server for our guild that we had at the time, and we're like, yeah, man, this is gonna be great. Gonna fucking kill all of the goddamn dorks. And then, the game actually went live like 10 minutes early, and we're like, oh my god, this is awesome, what do I do? And, we're walking each other through what we do and all this other shit and helping each other out, and, we get on this big fucking airship that's got all these goddamn guns on it, and it's like the Avengers fucking carrier, except more medieval
kind of
styling, more or less. And for me, I'm sporting this fucking tremendous boner, basically, because carriers that are flying, yes, thank you God. So we get to Pandaria, and they give you a helicopter, and you take off the carrier, and, you get your chain gun, and you get your rocket launcher, on the helicopter. And part of the mission is, after you gun down a bunch of orcs, kind of go all apocalypse now on their sorry asses, you go and you're fighting the Horde Navy. And so at this point, because evidently these ships take a lot more hits than just random, NPCs on the ground do. So a lot more players had congregated, and it became a choke point. You could not even see the ship, much less yourself. There were hundreds of these fucking helicopters fucking hovering around.
You just had to shoot. You just had to shoot blindly into the mists and hope that you hit what you were supposed to hit.
Mike, are we even hitting anything? I don't know. I'm just hitting buttons. God damn it! Well, it was like half an hour. We were in this one fucking spot, and before finally we got to go on. But yeah, you're going to have glitches at launch, or weird things like that just pop up. And to me, that's kind of part of the experience and part of the fun of it. But, part of the idea behind beta, you're supposed to look for obvious glitches, and not just glitches. Just overall suggest ideas to make the quest better, to make the gaming experience better. And Blizzard's actually kind of taken a cue from some of what you're saying, Mike. And, in some of the beta experiences that I've had with World of Warcraft, they've actually started putting up like a little questionnaire after a quest. How fun would you rate this quest? Ass. So
I had to kill 5 Murlocs to get a single eye.
Yeah, which they fixed most of that too. That's not nearly as bad as it used to be. But, you know, beta is abused by a lot of players, and I can understand why. I mean, it is a ton of fun because you get this max level character, you get all this fucking quote unquote dope ass gear, and then you're running around willy nilly and you get to see the content. I try not to play much in beta. I'll play enough to kind of get a feel for, you know, how the game is going to be and get a general layout of the land. That's about it though, because I am not a spoiler sensitive person. I don't care, and I've ranted before about how spoiler whiny the world has become.
Speaking of which, should we talk about the Warcraft spoiler?
I think we should. Yeah, I think we should. And, you know, if you are one of these aforementioned whiny-ass individuals, just...
His words, not mine.
Just fucking, I don't know, fast forward 5 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Fine. So, I have an email address now. Please send all of your hate mail to basicallygeekshow@gmail.com, and we will read it.
Yes, we will. So if you have a question for us or just want to tell us how stupid and idiotic we are.
Which we agree with you on, by the way.
Yes, we do. Just send us basicallygeekshow@gmail.com. But anyway, so if you want to avoid Warcraft spoilers, skip forward about 5 minutes or so.
Yeah.
So, Valen, he dead.
Valen, he be dead. He dead motherfucker. And it's kind of, okay, when a faction...
It's a cruel joke is what it is.
It is. I mean, it's always a big thing when a faction leader dies, and they haven't done it since Cataclysm, where they had Magni Bronzebeard, encased in crystal.
And then Karen, Bloodhoof.
Karen Bloodhoof, yes. But, you know, so Valen, again, as I mentioned earlier, he is the leader of the roving space goat clan called the Draenor. He's had no lore.
Since Burning Crusade, since he was introduced.
Yeah, which was in, I believe, 2006. No lore since 2006. And, you know, one of the awesome things that everyone was just so fucking stoked about when Draenor was announced. Yeah, fucking Draenor lore. We're going to get to chill with Valen, because
Valen's gonna do stuff.
Yeah, Valen is gonna do shit, because Valen is like...
He's the Uber priest.
Yeah, he is almost godlike in power, literally, in this universe. He is almost godlike. He could probably have snapped his fingers and made Orgrimmar fall to dust, but he was taping Seinfeld or something. I don't fucking know. But, you know, so yeah, Valen's gonna do shit, and Valen is gonna do shit. Bitch gonna be dying.
That's cruel.
It is.
After expansion after expansion of Alliance players going, when can we get some Draenor lore? When can we get some Valen lore? When can Valen be proactive? We finally we finally get the perfect expansion for Valen to be a main driving force of the story, and
fuck you!
And he's like the black guy at the start of Jurassic Park.
Pretty much. So Ner'zhul, who is one of the orc warlords in Draenor, is corrupted by evil demonic influences from an outer faction called the Burning Legion, and they're very not nice people. And so Ner'zhul,
you know, as orcs are prone to being corrupted.
Well, yeah. I mean, it is an orc, so, you know, you gotta kind of relatively... Even for an orc, he's pretty fucking bad. So Ner'zhul uses this evil force called the Void Terror. Really not generic name there. Totally not generic. And at the end of one of
those Blizzard writers really do earn their money.
They totally fucking do. And at the end of one of these zones, and I forget which one, I want to say Shadow Moon Valley.
It's going to be Shadow Moon Valley, I think, because the Shadow Moon clan is Ner'zhul's
okay, so
clan,
yeah, that would make sense then, yeah. So at the end of the zone, you fight Ner'zhul, and he, during the fight, corrupts a Naru. Now, a Naru, if anyone here is familiar with Star Trek, the crystalline entity, except not the size of Godzilla, and looks a lot less like a cheap Christmas decoration. They're basically the sentient beings of light that have a semi-crystalline form Shoot them.
The best way to describe them is they're kind of like angels. The main alliance faith in Warcraft is called the Light, and the best way to understand it is if the Light is God, then the Naru are angels because they are physical beings of light, so they're like mediators between mortals and the light. So think of them essentially as kind of like angels, is probably a good analogy.
More or less, yeah. So Ner'zhul corrupts one of these Naru into a quote-unquote, hold on to your knickers, boys, Dark Naru. Yeah.
Chris Metzen spent all night on that one.
Fuck it, totally. And so in order to purify the now Dark Naru, Valen sacrifices himself and dies.
And here's the kicker. Shadowmoon Valley is the Alliance starting zone, so it's not even like Valen's gonna die at the end of the game heroically. He dies at the end of the first zone. He's dead.
Well, now Shadowmoon is the first zone for Alliance, yeah, because Black Temple. Okay, so yeah, in the first zone, Valen bites the big one. Now, the flip side to this is, sure, you know, one of the most neglected Alliance leaders, and one of the most neglected characters lore-wise in the World of Warcraft, sure, he gets nixed at the beginning of the expansion right when he starts to become relevant. But we get a really cool cinematic.
If all is redeemed if his dying words in the cinematic are, "If with my last breath I curse Thrall,"
Yes.
and then he dies flipping the double bird.
Thrall is a good dies. Yes, love it. Oh,
yeah. So that's interesting. So that is Valen's story. Who is going to succeed him as the Draenor leader? We will see. There are two. There are two leading candidates. The first is Akama, who was last seen as Illidan's houseboy. And then we've got, what's her name? The new Draenor paladin, female paladin that they've introduced.
I want to say Yuri. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know for sure. That might be wrong.
But Blizzard did hint that she was going to play a big part in things to come, so she's the other possibility when it comes to to the Draenor leadership position. But regardless, we know it's not going to be Valen because he died just as things were starting to look up for him.
I can have story. No, bitch, die. Aww.
So, I guess just kind of, playing off themes of perceived Blizzard biases one way or another, the discussion I wanted to have regarding Warcraft is, so your character's been nerfed. Now, for those not in the know, nerf is when Blizzard decides that a class is too strong, so they go in and they weaken it. And this is not without controversy, because oftentimes what Blizzard thinks needs to happen is not what player base thinks needs to happen. So it's the source of much angst within the game community. And Jack here's got a lot of experience with it because he has been blighted. He plays a paladin, and no class has been nerfed as many times, as severely throughout the history of Warcraft as the paladin. So why don't you give us your insights on that?
Well, now I'll start by saying I'm sure that there will be a lot of people who say, well, such and such class has been nerfed more times, and so on and so forth. And there may be something to that. So I wouldn't say necessarily that the Paladin has been nerfed more than any other. And I won't say that we certainly haven't had our times in the limelight. That being said, the Paladin is one of those classes that, if you had played during vanilla, it just would have been grass your healing. You can't even tank. That's a warrior's job. God. And
God forbid you were a warrior and want to do DPS.
Yeah. So, you have the situation where paladins were relegated to being a support class, and that changed in like DC. Wrath of the Lich King was the first time when a Retribution Paladin, which is my primary spec, when a Retribution or DPS spec became viable, and God, was it glorious. I mean, I was competitive. I put up big numbers, which
You put up the best numbers in our guild.
I did. I did put up best numbers at the time in our guild. But I mean, even before we formed our guild, even in my first raiding guild, I was competitive with everything except a Death Knight. And
Death Knights were insanely powerful at the beginning of Lich King.
And then one day, they took away the main ability that gave me those numbers. Because they said it was upsetting the balance of PvP. Well, what the fuck does that do for me? I don't play PvP.
Yeah, if you want a certain class nerfed in WoW, your best bet is to go onto the official World of Warcraft forums on Blizzard's main site, and then just complain the class that you don't like is upsetting the balance of PvP, and you guarantee that shit's getting corrected in the next patch.
Most likely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm rather lucky.
Oh God.
I've played two classes. I played a Death Knight in Lich King, which was the first expansion where Death Knights were playable, so they really wanted to play up the Death Knight. So they were really powerful. And then in Cataclysm, I started playing a Warrior. And at the end of Cataclysm, leading into Pandaria, they really buffed Warrior, buffing being the reverse of nerfing. The Warrior got insanely powerful, and though it's been tweaked since then, the Warrior it's just awesome. The move, Dragon Roar, if you want to see DPS numbers, if you want to see the damage per second numbers really, really rise, just hit Dragon Roar on a mob of enemies and watch those numbers dance. So I'm kind of in the opposite position of Jack here, they'll come out and be like, we increased the damage to Dragon Roar. And then Jack will be like, oh, they reduced the damage on Divine Storm.
One day, they're going to remove Dragon Roar from cooldown altogether. And you'll log in, you'll be like, hey, Jack, this is fucking awesome, dude. Dragon Roar, no cooldown. I can just spam that shit all the time. Yeah, that's nice, Mike. I've got bigger things to worry about. What? I can't find my character.
They removed paladins from the game.
Yeah. Instead, it is our apologies because we recognize the inconvenience of having your character removed from the game. We have given you a pre-designated level 90 of a random class and race. All I've got's a goddamn gnome named Tiddlywinkel.
And he's a priest!
Fuck my life. So basically, the first thing, if you are in a position in an MMO where you find your character nerfed, the first thing is remember the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and don't panic. Because chances are everyone else has been nerfed as well as you, at least as long as they play that same class. Either that or Blizzard just hates you, and they probably do. The second thing is immediately run to a test dummy in any major capital city and spend hours at it. And if you hit enough buttons long enough, the numbers will go up. Either because the nerf might magically undo itself, or you might get so tired that you hallucinate and think that the numbers are going up.
But either way, you will come out ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter if you're doing better as long as you think you are. Next thing, when your guild asks you, well, how is this going to affect your raid performance? Oh, not at all. I've already compensated. I fucking got this. And then later on at raid time, when they ask you why, just say that coincidentally the day that you were nerfed corresponds with the day that you decided to try heroin for the first time.
Yeah, Blizzard, they've been trying to address the nerfing issue. They said, it's not about what your DPS is, it's about what your DPS is supposed to be for your class. And they've tried to say that certain classes, they're going to have different DPS expectations. So it's like, so if you're a paladin, don't be surprised if your DPS isn't all the way to the top of the charts. Maybe it's not supposed to be. And you know what? That would almost be fine, except for the fact that Blizzard forgot that their game is internet-based and is drawn from internet people. So you don't have the most forward-thinking, understanding individuals you're trying to explain that to. They're just going to see your DPS is suffering, and then they'll probably call you some not very nice names.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way it goes.
That's nerfing. With the whole, now they are doing this whole item squish, the number squish where everyone's stats are getting reduced. But that's supposed to be worldwide, so in terms of relativity, you're still probably going to be at the sixth spot, but I don't expect that to go over entirely smoothly, and I expect them to do lots of buffing and nerfing at the launch of Draenor just to try to find that right balance once that squish has been initiated.
They will, and the item level squish, the number squish, basically, it's just that. They're truncating the numbers to a degree, kind of recalibrating the damage that's being done, because at the point that the gear is now in World of Warcraft, damage per second is now measured in the millions.
Yeah, it's getting ridiculous.
And I personally don't have a problem with that. I just view it as the natural course of progression. This is logically where it's going to go, and it feels kind of badass to see that you hit a guy for 1 million damage. So I like it. I won't say that I'm against the item level squish, because I'm not really. I'm kind of ambivalent about it. I view it as an unnecessary waste of time and resources on Blizzard's part. Now, they have said, and this could be a valid argument, I don't know, I'm not a computer programmer, but they did say that from a programming end of things, it does help save system resources. And I could theoretically understand that. And if that's the case, then fine. But if it's just because people are like, oh my god, the numbers are too big, herp-a-dar, shut the fuck up. Just saying. Just shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I don't have an opinion actually one way or the other, honestly. So long as everyone is relative to everyone else, I'm fine. But
which they insist that we will be relative to one another, and they insist that, it will not impact players' ability to, run solo through older content. So as long as you can still do that, whatever, fine. I'll live with it, of course, because, again, not much choice. And it's not that big of a thing for me to really rage about. It is what it is. Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess that wraps up World of Warcraft talk, and now we can get into a topic that I think, with Iron Man 3 aside, we really haven't touched much on the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We talked a little bit with our co-host, our guest co-host, Zach, last week after the Batman-Superman discussion, but we only really touched on it lightly, and this is a good opportunity, I think, to really delve into the three main projects that Marvel Films will be releasing. Those being, one of them's not a Marvel Films enterprise, it's a Marvel property that Fox has the rights to. That will be X-Men Days of Futures Past. But then the two Marvel Films offerings, Captain America, The Winter Soldier, and Avengers Age of Ultron. So do you have a preference where we start with this, Jack?
I really do.
Alright, so let's start with the one that's not part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We'll get that out of the way, and then we'll tackle the two that are. So, X-Men, Days of Futures Past. I suppose the best way to start this is to give kind of just a brief synopsis of where we are in our X-Men fandom.
Clusterfuck.
You're not, so that's how you would describe your X-Men fandom?
No, I'm just saying, I'm preemptively saying my thoughts on the movie.
But as far as being an X-Men fan, where do you stand? Have you read any of the comics? What shows have you seen? Favorite characters? That kind of thing.
I have seen the shows, the old animated show from the
that
90s.
Awesome theme song.
I've watched all. Yeah, and I've watched all the movies. Pretty much, I even like the kind of crappy ones.
The Wolverine Origins movie. I've
seen worse things. I I'm not a super hardcore X-Men fan. I've never read any of the comic books, but, I do consider X-Men to be, one of my more preferred franchises from the Marvel Universe. My favorite character, very predictably would be Wolverine.
Oh, you went with a Canadian, eh?
He's badass. Least favorite, it would have to be a toss-up between Cyclops
and they get married.
Gray.
They're a couple.
Yeah, and they form this hideous union of generic uselessness. And fucking Cyclops is just a goddamn show.
Cyclops, it seems as if Cyclops was designed to be hated because he's your generic good guy. He's this blonde-haired white guy with like perfect abs and who constantly talks down to everyone. You just go, you know what? I hate you. I hate everything about who you are.
Yeah, I mean, he's the cousin.
You're constantly compared against, yeah.
Right, yeah. Well, your cousin Scott could have done it. Yeah, well, cousin Scott also probably masturbates to vampire midget.
Yeah, but...
and Jean Grey is just this abominable ball of generic. I don't get the point.
Her character can be summed up in 2 words, and that is psychic angst. Yeah. But I suppose, with, me, I've read a few of the comics from the 90s, actually, which was around the same time that I was watching the 90s cartoon, again with that awesome theme song, that one. I've seen all the movies, even the 2 Wolverine ones. I don't have quite as nice things to say about Wolverine Origins, but besides that, I've seen most of the movies. I've enjoyed most of them. Favorite X-Men character, Wolverine. Yeah, Wolverine's cool. Honestly, I never really had much of a favorite character. I don't know why. I like the franchise as a whole. I enjoy watching it, and I enjoy reading it, but I've never really been able to latch onto a single character, and that's a bit weird, but it is what it is. I guess Magneto, and he's the villain, but...
So the Jew's going to go with the Jew?
One could say that, yeah.
Obvious choice. How much thought did you put in that?
Oh, What do you want from me, exactly?
I don't know.
Well, anyway, so that's where we're coming from. On to the movie. So, for those who are perhaps unaware, the Days of Future Past movie is based on the comic series, the comic mini story called Days of Future Past. The gist of it is that in the future, things go to hell for mutants. The government has robotic sentinels patrolling the country, arresting mutants, placing them in internment camps, and the sentinels are going to be unleashed worldwide, and this is going to cause a nuclear war. So, Kitty Pryde is sent back in time into her younger body to avert the one thing that's going to lead to this future, which is the assassination of anti-mutite Senator Robert Kelly by Mystique. So Kitty Pryde is supposed to go back in time to fix this. The story takes place both in present day and past. And then we cut to the scene where Kitty Pryde prevents the assassination. She returns to her own time, and the audience is just sort of left to speculate whether or not the future that has been foretold of mutants being thrown in concentration camps has been averted. We don't know, but that's the story, and that's going to be the basis of this movie. But the biggest controversy that the trailer kind of indicated was that it's going to be Wolverine and not Kitty Pryde who has been sent back in time.
And okay, I've been every time you say the word Kitty Pryde,
that's her name.
The name Kitty Pryde, right? the image that pops into my head is a bag of cat litter.
Oh.
That sounds like a cat litter brand to me.
That's her name. What do you want me to do about it?
I'm not saying do anything. I'm just saying, does no one proof these things? I mean, were they just like, yeah, well, you know, I had this job as a marketing exec before I came here. Let me look through here. Kitty Pride cat litter. Fuck yes! And then just kind of go from there.
Well, you know, it was the 80s. Stan Lee was probably doing a lot of cocaine.
Oh, well, we all did cocaine in the 80s. I mean, yeah, I was in kindergarten in 1984, and they gave us an 8-ball at nap time, or right after nap time. I mean, it was pretty much mandatory. That's how we won the fucking Cold War. The Soviets were too afraid to start shit with us because our fucking teeth itched constantly.
Well, but do you have any thoughts on them kind of changing the main element of the story? You know, it's not going to be Kitty Pryde going back. It's going to be Wolverine.
Well, the thing is, all right, when I watched the trailer came across to me not as a trailer designed to give you an idea of a movie that you're going to be seeing. It was like they literally swept up the cutting room floor and spliced everything together into this random assault of various almost unrelated images. And it's like, hey, Xavier's back and he's got all of his fucking molecules. How? Don't fucking ask.
Well, they have said that they're going to explain how Xavier is suddenly here when in X-Men 3 he was decidedly disintegrated by Jean Grey.
Well, that's nice of them. I'm glad that they're going to take the time to do this for us. But, okay, basically from what I'm gathering from the plot of the movie is Xavier from the past has a bit of an emo fit. He's got crawling in his skin. His wounds, they will not heal. And so, you know, modern day Xavier, now once again in possession of all of his molecular structure, sends the most kind, compassionate, and patient individual that he can think of to go serve as a mentor to his former self.
Wolverine!
Hey, Logan, I need a favor, man. So
Wolverine.
Wolverine's like, LOL, what? Okay. Sure, why not? I guess I got nothing better to do.
He really doesn't.
He really doesn't. So, and then, you know, you're sending Wolverine back either mentally or physically to go do this
His present self is being transported into his younger body.
Okay.
Is how it's working. So, it's basically the Kitty Pryde story where Kitty Pryde is sent back into her younger body, but of course it's being replaced by Wolverine. And, you know, that is obvious as to why they're replacing Kitty Pryde's role in the story with Wolverine because, well, let's be honest. Wolverine is sort of the Bumblebee of X-Men. He's the guy who moves the merchandise.
Yeah. And, you know, actually, the favorite character question, I'd like to add an addendum to that. I would really like to see more of Gambit, and not the one that we've seen in, what was it, Origins?
Wolverine Origins, yes.
Yeah, not that Gambit, the real Gambit. I would like to see more of him. Mm-hmm. That aside, though, you know, this movie, to me, just feels like it's going to be clusterfuck from the get. Yeah, we should talk about X-Men, just past, present things, shit, stuff. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? And you explain it, you're like, here, go watch the trailer. Okay. All right, so I go on YouTube, you know, and I'm sitting there and I'm watching. I even maximized the window for crying out loud. And I'm watching it, and afterwards I'm even more confused than I was before. I had no earthly clue what the hell was going on with any of this. And if this same method of editing is employed in the movie, God, we're all fucked.
Well, you've essentially got two parallel casts, because you've got young Xavier and young Magneto, and then you've got old Xavier and old Magneto. And if it's going to follow the comic, then it's going to, the story's going to run concurrently in past and present. And, or future and present, future and past, it's time travel. It's time travel, it's interesting. Point being that you're going to have two stories that are related but independent of each other running concurrently. And how that is presented is going to make a huge difference. If they could masterfully edit this so that it keeps everyone engaged and it switches plot lines at just the right point, then it'll be a great success. But if they're haphazard with how they do this, it could be a mess.
I will see this movie because I have liked the X-Men movies. Even the ones that haven't been so good. So I as a fan, I will see it. I just don't have very high hopes for it. If I come out of that movie and say, yep, it's about what I expected, then you're a steaming pile of abomination stench.
And X-Men really has a bit of a problem, perception-wise, because you had the first two movies, which were very well received. X-Men 3 bombed. X-Men Origins, Wolverine was not well received. First Class, step in the right direction. Really liked First Class. A lot of people got on board with it. But then we had The Wolverine, where he's in Japan. And that was another solo Wolverine movie. It was perhaps better than X-Men Origins Wolverine, but it still left me personally a little flat, and I know a lot of people are sort of divided on it. So, for their big crossover movie, this is essentially the X-Men version of the Avengers, because it's bringing all of these characters, past and present, together. So, for this to work, for X-Men to really remain viable, this has to be a home run.
I think they've bit off more than they can chew.
Mm-hmm.
When you're trying to run, we're not talking a Warlords of Draenor thing necessarily where, you're going to a parallel universe and you're doing this, that, and the other thing, and that makes it a much more manageable narrative to work with. You're talking about a sprawling narrative across, 2 different time periods, God knows how many characters, and you're trying to seamlessly interweave all of them into something that resembles a cohesive unit of storytelling. I don't think they can do it.
Okay. Well, that'll do it for X-Men. On to, I guess we'll hit the more recent, the closer film, Captain America 2, The Winter Soldier. You've seen the trailers for this, I take it?
Yes, I have.
I know you're a fan of the first Captain America movie. Your thoughts just of what you've seen in the trailers for the second?
I'm cautiously optimistic. Captain America, to me, was almost one of those movies that I didn't feel like needed a sequel. Because you go immediately from, World War II, Red Skull, blah, 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 modern times, end of story. And then it kind of just really nicely kind of segues into Avengers and all this other shit. And I really didn't feel like a sequel was necessary. I mean, I knew that there would be one, but I really didn't feel that it was necessary.
Okay. Now, we're going to move into spoiler territory for a second. So again, if you want to avoid this spoiler concerning Captain America, The Winter Soldier, jump ahead around 5 minutes. Okay. So, as you remember from the first film, Captain America was battling the Red Skull.
Yes.
Well, Hugo Weaving, who played the Red Skull, will not be returning. He apparently had a less than ideal time on the set. Details really aren't abundant, but he did not really enjoy his time working on Captain America and will not be appearing in any other Marvel films. And so this movie will feature the Winter Soldier as the primary antagonist. The Winter Soldier is a revived and brainwashed Bucky Barnes, Captain America's friend from World War II from the first movie. He is captured by the Russians and is sort of brainwashed into becoming a super soldier like Captain America and used to further Russian aims. But he's not a villain in his own right. He's kind of a tool being used by someone else. And who that someone else would be was kind of left in the air because, well, the Red Skull's main actor was gone. And this movie also features Robert Redford in it, and he plays Alexander Pierce. Alexander Pierce is a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent and he is a friend of Captain America's, in the comics at least. But it seems as if they're going to play around with that, because two things happened. First, Robert Redford spoiled the movie. He announced he is, in fact, going to play the villain. And then something happened where the soundtrack for Captain America the Winter Soldier was prematurely released, and one of the tracks was titled Alexander Pierce is the Red Skull.
Brilliant.
Your thoughts on getting another actor to play the Red Skull, bring the Red Skull character back? How do you feel about that?
I don't have an issue with it. I mean, Hugo Weaving, I think, he's whatever. I really don't give a shit. And Red Skull, I mean, really, there's so much makeup involved that you pretty much could get almost anybody to do it. You really could. So I don't personally have a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just kind of my take on it. You can't really shelve Captain America's really only credible villain that I'm aware of, at least.
It's pretty much the Red Skull. Captain America's got a very weak rogues gallery.
And I mean, you know, if they don't do that, then we're going to end up with another fucking Aldrich Killian situation there, and nobody wants that. So I'd rather them, you know, keep the Red Skull with a different actor than to, you know, bring up some piddly-ass second stringer that they weave some shitty story around and try to make them menacing. So, yeah, I agree with that decision.
Okay, I'm optimistic about this. I really want to like this movie because the first Captain America movie was good, but it was a period piece. It was mostly set in World War II. There have been past Captain America movies, the Red Brown movies from the 70s, the 1990 Captain America movie, both series which tried to kind of take Captain America and present him in a then contemporary setting. The two Red Brown movies and the 1990 film were both terrible. The one good Captain America movie, the last one, was a period piece. So I'm hoping this will be our first contemporary Captain America movie that's actually decent.
It could be. They're keeping the same villain. They're not hopefully keeping the same villain in terms of, you know, is he going to be, are they going to try to give us all kinds of stupid symbolism and cram it down our throat? Are they going to over intellectualize it? Or are they just going to try to give us a really awesome villain? If they do the latter, then it'll be fine.
Yeah. I'm optimistic. It seems as if we're going to get a bit of anvil dropping. The trailer hints that Captain America at some point is going to think that S.H.I.E.L.D. goes too far. I'm not sure how I feel about that. X-Men does this too. X-Men has always kind of relied on the persecution angle and trying to use the stories as metaphors. It was an allegory for race back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and then it became an allegory for gay rights in the 90s and 2000s and 2010s. And now it seems as if Captain America is going to be used as trying to a safeguard of American freedom against those who would infringe upon it. I'm of two minds. On one hand, I appreciate these stories trying to strive for a higher meaning, kind of elevating the comic book and the comic book movie as a form of entertainment that can be taken seriously. But at the same time, using the X-Men as an example, the X-Men are best when it's just Magneto going, "It's the X-Men! Get them!
Welcome to die!"
Yeah, exactly. I mean, at a certain point, I have to say I appreciate the attempts at commentary. I appreciate the attempts at social engineering, I guess, trying to influence social ideas through entertainment. I appreciate that when it's done with the best of intentions, but sometimes you just want to see a really cool movie where just stuff blows up, the good guy punches bad guys, and cool things happen.
Exactly. And that's what I prefer to see 90% of the time. I mean, it really annoys me when movies try to basically put forth a moral agenda or whatever, or a social political agenda, just tell us a good story and shut the fuck up. You are supposed to be our escape from all of that, not a subtle reinforcement of the shit that we have to, think about and consider every day. Keep that shit where it belongs, on the news screen, and keep it out of my movies. At least if we're going to have, comic book movies, the quote unquote fun action movies type of thing. And I get that that's what they were doing even back in the day with analogs of the Soviet Union and all that shit. I get it. But we just don't have anything now that's really worth that. And we just need to, let's just keep it simple and keep it entertaining. That's my philosophy.
And so hopefully, Captain America manages to strike a nice balance. And hopefully we can finally get a contemporary Captain America movie that doesn't blow chunks. Cause I'm sorry, Reb Brown, it just wasn't doing it for me. Anyway, on to the Avengers, Age of Ultron, to wrap up this edition of basically a Geek Show. Avengers, Age of Ultron. So, your thoughts, sir? Just generally speaking, in a broad sense, everything you know, what are your thoughts?
Shitty villain. I could not give two shits about Ultron if I tried.
I'm inclined to agree. Been reading Marvel Comics very long time. Ultron just doesn't strike me as an interesting villain. He is a robot with a god complex. In 2001, A Space Odyssey did it better. Granted, Hal didn't have any dreams of world domination that we saw, but they did that trope better. A robot that wants to take over the world has become so it borders on parody almost. That's how cliched it's become. And there are so many interesting stories, so many interesting villains in the Marvel Universe that if they didn't want to hotshot the Thanos movie, then they could. I assume they're saving Thanos in the Infinity Gauntlet for Avengers 3. If they wanted to do that, then they could have pulled someone out for Avengers 2, someone much more interesting than Ultron.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm sure, like you said, there were a lot of things that they could have done. There would have been more interesting choices for that. A robot that wants to take over the world because reasons. I just don't really. There's nothing there that really compels me to want to watch. I mean, I will, of course, but it doesn't have me really looking forward to it. It's going to be one of those cases that, were it not for us doing the show, the trailer for it, and it says now in theaters. Oh, well, that's a thing now. I guess I'll go see it. There's no anticipation there. It's just going to be a thing that I see, and hopefully it will pleasantly surprise me. I'm not holding out much hope on that, though.
Now, it seems as if... Okay, now in the comics, Ultron is created by Hank Pym, a.k.a. Ant-Man, also known as the worst superhero in Marvel. But, that's going to be changed for this movie. They're, again, changing something up. They're going to have Ultron be... It seems as if he's going to be a creation of Tony Stark. That Tony Stark will inadvertently create Ultron. And, you know what? I actually think that's probably for the best. Even though there's an Ant-Man movie coming out, and we'll talk about that in due time as we get more information on it, Tony Stark is more well-known. He is a genius. He is known as an inventor. His suits show that he dabbles in robotics. So, the idea that you can take a popular Marvel character like Tony Stark and make him the father of Ultron, it's just easier for the audience to get behind the concept. I have no problem with that, honestly. Because, again, Ant-Man is terrible. But, again, it comes back to interesting villain. And they've got James Spader to play Ultron. He could be interesting, but at the same time, I just never thought there's enough there. And maybe they can surprise me. Maybe they can surprise me and Ultron will be a really engaging villain. I doubt it, Lo. I really doubt it. the best way to make Ultron interesting is to dive into the ramifications of artificial intelligence. But as the Iron Man film series showed when they kind of avoided addressing Tony's alcoholism directly, the Marvel films, while aimed at a more mature audience, still aren't ready to tackle the really heavy themes that something like, say, Nolan's Batman series did.
Yeah, and I don't think they'd do it very well, even if they tried, to tell you the truth. I think it is better to, have Tony be the one that makes Ultron. I would still prefer that we not do the Ant-Man thing, though. That would be great.
That's a movie. That's happening.
Fuck me.
I mean, Ant-Man and Aquaman rival each other in terms of futility and terribleness.
Yeah. Just because you have a comic book does not mean that you should make it into a movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree on that. Ant-Man is... he's the bottom of the barrel. And I worry that Marvel's sort of gonna kill the whole comic book movie
they're going to
genre by bringing in, and we were planning on talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, but we want to keep the show a relatively reasonable length, so we'll get to Guardians of the Galaxy next week. But Guardians of the Galaxy, I guess a quick preview of that is that I don't particularly care for them. As far as I'm concerned, they're right there with Ant-Man, the bottom of the barrel as far as Marvel goes. And so you got Guardians of the Galaxy, you got Ant-Man. At a certain point, you're going to dilute the market. And it's not just going to be Marvel comic book movies that suffer. It's going to be all comic book movies, because as far as the public's concerned, it's just all one genre.
Right. But Marvel, I don't see them really caring. As long as they can keep making money off of it, they'll keep doing it. And, if Guardians of the Galaxy flops, if Ant-Man flops, that might encourage them to kind of rein themselves in a bit. Mm-hmm. But I don't think they will. I think the movies will at least end up being semi-profitable, simply because they're Marvel movies and people will go into them not really knowing what to expect. Especially Guardians of the Galaxy it's something not a lot of people even really know about. And there's going to be a big curiosity factor there. They're not really going to know what to expect. And I don't... It might end well, it might not. I'm just really worried that it's going to get to the point that it's going to end up being, just bloated with so many bad decisions made, where they're just going to start digging up any obscure comic or hero or whatever that they've got and trying to make a quick buck off of it.
Yeah. Guardians of the Galaxy I could actually see being profitable. It's got a lot of cool visuals. You got a CGI raccoon. That'll get people, interested. It's space. It's a space opera. It'll get people excited because people like space. They like spaceships.
Green women.
So you'll get the Kirk crowd in there.
Hell yes.
But Ant-Man, I don't see Ant-Man being profitable. It's goddamn Ant-Man.
Yeah, that one would be a little bit different, because even if you don't know about Ant-Man, the words Ant-Man tell you everything you really need to know, I think. So it's going to be one of those things where you hear that, you're like, yeah, no thank you.
Yeah, they got Paul Rudd to play him, and I think Paul Rudd is a fantastic comedic actor, but god damn it, I don't want to see him as Ant-Man, because I don't want to see anyone.
You don't want to see anybody as Ant-Man.
No, I don't understand why an Ant-Man movie is a thing that they feel needs to happen.
Why? Why are we here? Why are we having to have this discussion? God damn it, Marvel, you've made us talk about fucking Ant-Man. Fuck you.
And they're gonna work Ant-Man into if not Age of Ultron, then at least Avengers 3, Thanos' Day Out. And when that happens, I don't know. You look at the original Avengers lineup. The original Avengers lineup, you had Tony, you had the Hulk, you had Thor, and then you had Ant-Man. So yeah, it's like the super genius in a mobile battle suit, guy who gets really angry and turns into an unstoppable killing machine. The Norse god of thunder, and then a guy who can shrink himself really, really small. I don't care about Ant-Man. That's my rant. Thankfully, it doesn't appear as if Ant-Man will be appearing in Ultron, because the Ant-Man movie scheduled for after Age of Ultron, he might be the character who makes an appearance in the post-credit sequence if they want to use Age of Ultron to garner some hype going into the Ant-Man film. But yeah. Hype in an Ant.
The ability to turn oneself small makes me think of that skit they did on Family Guy, where Peter makes himself like a tampon size and he fits in the pouch and he says, "Now we play the waiting game."
Oh, God.
And really, I mean, beyond just really lame jokes like that, I don't see... I don't see the appeal here. I don't see why anyone's really going to give a shit. Mm-hmm. Without it just being a raunchy comedy piece, which...
It's Paul Rudd, so maybe.
I mean, it could be, and that would be the treatment that it would deserve, and I would probably end up maybe even liking it if that were the case. But...
It's like Ant-Man goes to university.
Yeah, I mean, as an actual, quote-unquote superhero piece, no, there's no credibility there at all, and it's something that needs to not happen.
Yeah, if Ant-Man is a story about him going to university and the villain is the uptight dean, you know what? I'll watch that. But otherwise, no. I don't care about Ant-Man. I'm sorry, Paul Rudd. I like your movies, but bad choice here. Yeah, so that kind of wrapping us around back to Age of Ultron. That's the story there. We'll have more to share as more gets released outside of just listing off the casting choices. There's really not much to talk about. We know Ultron's going to be the villain. We know who the characters are going to be. We're really just waiting on that first trailer to kind of give us a glimpse of what the movie's going to be like. And I think that's going to be key. And I'm sure they'll make Ultron in the first trailer look as awesome as possible. If they can really sell him as a viable threat, then I won't eat my own words because I still don't like Ultron in the comics, but I'll give his film version a shot if they can make him look properly menacing in trailers.
I'm going to make a prediction. Mm-hmm. The trailers will show Ultron being the most badass villain ever, and it will have us intensely looking forward to the movie. We will go see said movie, and about halfway through it, it will become apparent that Ultron actually is merely a pawn who was captured and reprogrammed by Stiltman.
And Stiltman is the real villain.
Yes.
Avengers 2, Stiltman rises.
Yeah. That's where we're going with this, I think. I think that's where we're going.
Oh God. When they start making movies about Stiltman, that's when it's time to wrap this whole thing up. And it's time to wrap the show up, unfortunately. Thank you for joining us for episode 3 of Basically a Geek Show. You can check us out at basicallysports.com, basicallyasportshow.com. You can check us out on iTunes under Basically Sports Show. Check us out on YouTube. Just search Basically a Sports Show or Basically a Geek Show. Stitcher, Podomatic, Basically a Geek Show, and of course the email address that we pimped earlier, basicallyageekshow@gmail.com. Send us your hate mail or your questions. We'll respond to any and all messages live. Well, not live, but on the air. So, this is Mike. This has been Jack, signing off for the evening.
Night, people.
Good night.